Okay. So yeah, a little bit about Discover Adventure. We are actually celebrating 30 years of being at the end of this month, which is very exciting. We have been started as a mountain bike company, small group tours, and we got involved in the charity market right at the sort of birth of it in 1997. A UK charity asked us to do one of our trips as a fundraising activity, and from there it sort of all blossomed. And yeah, we've been almost 30 years. We operate all over the world. This particular trip we have been doing since I think 2001 was the first time we ran the trip, so well over 20 years. I've done it myself about 30 times. It's a fantastic challenge. It is tough, but definitely achievable, and yeah, really brilliant thing to take on. We work with about 2,500 UK charities on bespoke trips like this, but also for them promoting our Open. We have a team based in Salisbury, just near the south coast, and Stonehenge, who will do all the bookings and behind it and support it on a 24-hour basis whilst you're out there. And then you will have crew from the UK going out with you, and then obviously a whole host of local guides. And in terms of the support, it generally ends up being 2 crew to 1 participant, and that involves all the guides, assistant guides, porters, kitchen staff. It's a big operation. So let's say we get up to the 20 that we're hoping for. You'll end up having a support crew of about 40 people. So really well supported throughout the trip, and then we have the sort of backup in the office as well. The trip itself is the hardest graded trip we have, as a Red 3. So, and that's mostly graded on its altitude, to be fair. There are some, and there's 2 days that sort of roll into one, the day before summit and when you set off at midnight to get to the summit. Those 2 days roll into one, and they're probably the hardest 2 days of any of the trips we have. Plus that with the altitude, and that's what gives its rating of a Red 3. It's not a particularly long trek. It's about 57 kilometers in total. So you spread that over the 6 days that you're trekking, less than 10 kilometers a day. But doing that at altitude, again, that's why you have the difficulty rating, because of the altitude. The terrain itself is not too taxing. It's, they're good mountain paths. There's a couple of sections, one particular bit on the Barranco wall, which is you need to use your hands. I wouldn't call it scrambling. Some people do, but those are as technical as it gets. The rest of it is just walking on good mountain paths at altitude. Some long days in there, despite the shorter distances. And the reason we make them longer days is because we're walking, at 1 to 2 kilometers an hour as an average. So very slow compared to what you can achieve down at sea level. But that's just to allow our bodies to acclimatize nice and slowly. So it's good to spend as much time as we can slowly getting to altitude rather than rushing there and then letting our bodies catch up. So the idea is to spend those days, sort of drag them out, so that it gives our body the best chance to acclimatize. The highlights of the trip, Kilimanjaro is the highest freestanding mountain in the world. So that's quite a cool thing to say you've been to the top of, or had a really good go at getting up there. It is one of the 7 summits of the world, so the highest point on the continent of Africa. And then there are obviously the other 6 on the other continents. The variety of terrain that you will see, you start off down on the African plain, and then you work up, and actually the start gate is in sort of cloud forest and quite thick, dense vegetation, almost jungle type vegetation, and then you move up through alpine deserts, and then with very little vegetation, some lichens growing on rocks and things like that, and all the way up to the sort of high, glacial areas, on the summit crater. So really varied terrain for such a short distance, and for somewhere that's so close to the equator. And as I said, the things that make it hard: the altitude, the long days, and the odd bit of terrain, but mostly the path is good. So a typical day into what you will be doing when you're on the mountain itself. wake ups 5:30. Some people set their alarms a bit early if they want longer to get up. Have breakfast about 6 o'clock, and they're communal tents. So the sleeping tents are 2-man tents that you'll be buddied up with. If someone you want to share with, you can put in a room share request or tent share request when you sign up or in your portal. If you haven't done that, then we basically put people with the same gender and of a similar age, and that's how you get your buddy for the week. If you're signing up as a solo person, it's absolutely fine. Most people do sign up as an individual, and then they get to know people as you go along. But so you will have a buddy, and it's important that we have buddies on the mountain looking out for each other. You can spend quite a bit of time in your tent through the night, and so it's important to have that sort of a bit of safety mechanism that people are, somebody is looking out for you. So that's a really important part of the trip, and it actually makes it a really supportive environment to be in as well, which is fabulous. So you will get up, have breakfast in the communal eating tent, and then there'll be a briefing about how the day's going to go, and then you'll set off, maybe some warm-ups depending on what the weather's doing. And we try and break the day up into four sections, really. We do a couple of hours of walking, have a break, and a snack, and then some replenish our water if need be, another couple of hours lunch, another couple of hours afternoon break, another couple of hours into camp. Doesn't quite work like that, but that's generally how we try and break it down. So we sort of do these sort of 4 sections rather than one solid constant walking. Get into camp anytime between 4 or 5 o'clock, maybe 4:30 on some of the longer days. Your tents will be set up. The porters, they take down the tents when you have having your breakfast, so that's why your bags could be packed when you come up to breakfast, so they can start breaking camp down. And at some point during the morning, they will come past us with all of our kits, charge off to the next camp and set everything up, so that when we get into camp, our tents are there. We can pick up our bags, sort our stuff into our tents, have a bit of a chill out, tea, hot drinks and some snacks in the communal tent, and then we have dinner around 6 o'clock. And again, generally have a briefing at the end of dinner just to debrief the day, make sure everyone's all right, doing visual checks of everybody, and then heading off to get some sleep. So that's generally how the days on the mountain work. In terms of the itinerary itself, it's a 10-day itinerary. We depart from London on day 1, and you will meet 3 hours prior to the departure time. Flights are usually in the sort of afternoon, evening of day 1. So meet your crew who are flying out with you, or somebody, if the crew are already there, then somebody will come up to, from the office and make sure everyone gets checked in properly. Fly overnight and arrive into Kilimanjaro via a African hub, generally either Nairobi in Kenya or Addis Ababa, sometimes with Ethiopian Airlines, but with an African hub, and then down to Kilimanjaro, arriving in the morning of day 2. Get into the airport in Kilimanjaro, meet the local guide, pick our bags, sort our visas, get through the gate, jump onto our bus, and it takes about an hour to get from the airport to the hotel. You get to the hotel in good time, usually then have some lunch, have a briefing, meet some more of the guides and assistants if they're around, and really get much more granular with the detail about the trip, and they'll talk about kit and altitude and all those kind of things. And then they'll ask you to go off to your room and essentially set your kit out as though you lie it on the bed, so that they can come around and do a visual kit check and make sure that they're happy with your sleeping bag and your mat and your waterproofs and your kit in general. And if there are issues, then they've got time to try and resolve those. And then you can pack all of that kit up. And you basically have 3 bags. 1 bag to go on the mountain as your day bag that you'll carry with you, which has got warm clothes, waterproof, snacks, hat, gloves, sun cream, camera, water, those kind of things that you carry throughout the day. You have another overnight bag that goes from camp to camp that the porters carry, with your sleeping bag, roll mat, overnight clothes, wash bag, some comfortable, trainers, Crocs type thing, shoes to wear in the evening. And then you have an opportunity to leave a bag at the hotel securely with travel clothes. If you're staying on afterwards, you know you can leave those clothes that you've got for safaris or whatever. Your glad rags for the celebration meal when you come back down. They can all be left securely at the hotel. So they just go away, split your bags up, and then get some, have a dinner and some good sleep on the end of day 2, ready for climbing on day 3. At the start of day 3, it's about 45 minutes from the hotel to get us to Machami Gate, which the Machami is the route that we take, and then we'll be trekking from day 3 to day 8. This image on the right, so this is the gate that you come through. It usually takes an hour and a half maybe for the porters to get registered with the park authorities and all the bags to be weighed to make sure they're not carrying too much, and to ensure that the porters are, their welfare is maintained. So we have about an hour and a half to top up our water, sort our kit out a little bit more, our day bags, top up our sun cream, have a bit of something to eat. Once all the registration's done, then we set off and start trekking for the next few days. So the route I like this overview map here. So this is the mountain. So Kilimanjaro up at the top here. We start down here at Machami Gate, and our first day is, as I said, up through the sort of cloud forest, jungly type thing. Good, nice, dense vegetation. Really nice good four-wheel drive track to start off with. And then it becomes a well-managed single path up to Machami Camp at about 3,000 meters. The second day, we go up the ridge onto the Shira Plateau, and we aim to get to this camp actually for a sort of late lunch. Have a late lunch, and then we go further across the Shira Plateau over to some caves to get a little bit higher to help with acclimatization, and then come back down for the afternoon. So shorter morning, we get ourselves up to the camp. This is about 3,900 meters. And then the third day of trekking, we go up across the Shira Plateau, heading up towards here, the Lava Tower, and then you're sort of right underneath the summit of Kilimanjaro. We have lunch up at the Lava Tower. Now, Lava Tower is 4,600 meters. Really brilliant to get there for acclimatization. And then we drop down into the Barranco, which is 3,900. So very similar altitude to the previous night. So we've gone higher during the day, and then we come back down for the night. And that's, really good acclimatization. Our bodies are going to be still acclimatized into where we were at lunchtime, but we're down here now with more oxygen and, great acclimatization. The second day, this is where the sort of little scrambly section is up the Barranco wall. So we start early, get up the Barranco wall, takes about 45 minutes to an hour to get all the way onto the top of it, have a little rest there, and then we traverse across the mountain, and we have lunch at a place just here called Karanga. So there's a steep descent to the river and then up, and there's a little camp here called Karanga where we have lunch. And then the afternoon is getting up and up onto the ridge at Barafu, which is our sort of base camp for our summit attempt. And this is at 4,600 meters. So this is the same altitude as the Lava Tower was the day before for lunch. So our bodies have spent the previous night and that day still acclimatized into the higher one, and then we get back there. And hoping to get to Barafu right about sort of 4 to 5 o'clock. It is a long day and it is getting high, but if we can get there 4 or 5 o'clock, have an early dinner, get straight off to bed, because about midnight or 11 o'clock, get woken up, have a hot drink, bit of something to eat, and we set off by midnight. Again, the weather can change this, but this is general plan. Midnight from Barafu all the way up this ridge, and you won't see it, but it's just you zigzagging up a scree slope, and you get to this place called Stella Point, which is on the crater rim of Kilimanjaro. It takes about 6 hours to get there, something like that. We'll probably see sunrise just before we get up to Stella Point. Once we're at the Stella Point, that's the really worst of the ascents done, and there's around about another hour and a quarter from Stella Point around to Uhuru Peak, which is the highest point in the summit of Kilimanjaro. About 20 minutes at the summit, and then make our way back, get back down to Barafu for lunch, have a bit of a rest, have a bit of something to eat, and then it's a couple of hours to carry on down to Millennium Camp, which is our final camp. And brilliant to get down to Millennium Camp because you've come down to lower altitudes. It's about 4,000 meters. So you're much lower. Everyone usually get, very tired after those sort of 2 long days combined. Usually a bit of a, very positive atmosphere, lots of tired people, sleep well. The next morning, get up, and it's our last opportunity to see our local crew, because they will disappear off, drop our bags off, and then they either get themselves back to the start to do it all over again, or go home and have a rest and see their family. So we have a bit of a farewell with the team in the morning, and then walk down, and we come out of the game. This is called Mweka Gate down here. It's about 10 kilometers from there to a point here, and then you have a really easy 4-wheel drive track section to finish. There's a lovely descent, so you're coming back down into forested areas, often see sort of monkeys, certainly can hear lots of birds, more wildlife, whereas obviously the high area of the trip, there's not a lot of wildlife around, few birds, but not a lot else. So we get back down to here and then transfer back down to Moshi, which is down in the bottom, and we get back to the hotel, have some lunch, chill out for the afternoon, and then have a celebration in the afternoon, in the evening. So this is some shots. This is the first day. As I said, the 4-wheel drive track heading up, porters coming past you, and this, as you get higher up on the first day, it becomes a single track, but very easy, very manageable, lovely lush vegetation. On the second day of trekking, this is coming up the ridge up the Shira Plateau. So you've got these big heather sort of bushes. We come up through them, you're starting to get into open ground. These are the sort of, if we're lucky, there's this emerald sunbird, beautiful bird that lives in and around the giant ground source that you might see probably the following day, to be honest. But you're coming up onto the Shira Plateau and losing the vegetation. And then from Shira Camp, we're coming up this very open now into sort of alpine desert. This is the morning of the third day of trekking. This is the shot for the lava tower. So we actually come up round the back of the lava tower, have lunch there, and then descend down this track. And this is looking back up from, we're on our way down to Barranco for the overnight. So yeah, behind Barranco, this is just on top of Barranco Wall. You can see this is the summit of Kilimanjaro, and we're going to end up traversing further around the mountain for the next day and a half, and then we end up going up the right-hand side of that ridge. And yeah, this is coming further across. This is Karanga Camp, where we have our lunch. So some people stay here, but we use it as a lunch base. And then head further up, and you're really starting to, then you can see the vegetation. There's very, very little. Working our way around the mountain over towards Barafu, and this is Barafu Camp. It's essentially a boulder field up on a high ridge, but it gives us a really great staging post for our summit attempt. And like I said, setting off at midnight. As we go up on our right-hand side, and as the sun's coming up, you see this beautiful spiky peak, and this is Mwenzi. It's one of the other sort of summits of the volcanic range. Very unstable rock, very sharp. It's not a mountain you can go up, but it makes a beautiful backdrop. This is the final little section up the scree slope to give you an idea of it, and Stella Point is just at the top there. This last section, once it's daylight and you can see where you're going, does feel like it's taking forever. But you get up to the top, have a little rest, and then carry on over, passing the glaciers as you go. So these are all, you'll see them as you traverse along the mountain. And then when you're actually up on the crater rim, you walk alongside them. Absolutely fantastic. They are receding. They think by 2050 they won't be there. And they certainly have. In the 20 years that I've been going, they have decreased in size. So, beautiful thing to see whilst they're there. And then we get up to the summit. I said about 20 minutes at the top, a few photos before heading back down. And so then this is Millennium Camp. So based down here, you can look back up, and just 24 hours ago, you were stood up there on the top of Kilimanjaro, and now you're down here having a fantastic night's sleep, and know that you're on your way down to a shower, which you won't have had for a few days. The provision in the camp is that they can provide water to keep your hands and things clean. Wash your hands when you using the loo before you have any food, but you'll see on the kit list taking wet wipes, and they're really useful just to keep yourself as fresh as you possibly can whilst on the mountain. And then when you come off the mountain, great, everyone piles into their hotel rooms and has a lovely shower. And definitely this morning everybody's looking forward to that the most, I think. It's about 4 or 5 hours maybe trekking down to the park gate, so getting down there by sort of midday-ish, and we'll work down, and the group do spread out a little bit, so there'll be a bit of waiting to make sure we've got everybody, and from this park gate then we drive back down to the hotel. Very nice hotel, swimming pool, lovely, peaceful, quiet place, about half an hour outside of Moshi itself. So really nice, and like I said, it's the same hotel you start in that you'll finish in. So be reunited with your clean clothes and any of the things that you left back at the hotel, and some time to relax, have a beer, and have a celebration meal in the evening. On day 9, there'll be some free time. If they are Kenyan flights, then they're usually at about sort of 6 o'clock in the morning of day 10. So you have a full free day to relax, or to go into Moshi and have a look around some of the markets, or to stay at the hotel. If it is a full day, then there is an optional half-day safari that we can go out to Arusha National Park, unless you've booked on the full 4-day version. That could be an option too. If it's an Ethiopian Airlines, they tend to leave late on day 9. So you either leave late on day 9 or really early on day 10 to get ourselves home and arrive back into the UK on day 10. And that is the trip in a nutshell. There's a couple of things before I've got any questions, but there are a few little things that I was going to point out. Those of you who have signed up already, just to make sure that you've look in your portal and make sure all your information's up to date with insurances and passports and things, so we can secure flights. Flights have been a real issue since COVID, really. Airlines are definitely not back up to full capacity, so the planes that they do have in the air are running, are on high demand. So we're being pushed more and more to in order to secure things within budget, so that as much of the money can go towards the charity as possible. We try and secure flights in as far in advance as we can. So if you haven't signed up and you're thinking about it, I would urge you to do it as quickly as possible. And if you know people who haven't been able to make this meeting who are keen, as soon as possible, so that we have a really genuine idea of how many people we have got on the trip, and then we can secure flights without it being too onerous. If we don't, and there are any late joiners, then there is likely to be increases in the in an airfare, or people need to arrange their own flights. So the sooner we can get people signed up, the better, and then we can just relieve that pressure of knowing how many seats we can reliably book and not waste money on deposits unnecessarily. So yeah, if you're on the fence, you haven't thought about it, and you're thinking about it, at least let the charity know as soon as you can, so that they have a good idea on flights. Visas you can do before you go. You can get them online, and it's by far the easiest thing, especially if the group's a little bit bigger. It just saves time at the other end. If for whatever reason you can't, there is an option to do it on arrival. But yeah, that queue can be a bit longer and take a bit more time. And if you can get it before you go, that is by far the best thing. And yeah, once you're signed up, there's lots of information that you'll get in terms of kit lists and training guides, and information about more about the trip. Like I said, it is graded as our hardest trip, but it's very, very achievable. We take about 10 to 12 groups every year, average group size of somewhere between 15 and 25. And we've been doing it for a long time, and it's a fabulous trip. And those who've already signed up and are definitely going, you will have a fabulous time.